Hello, hello, you guys. Welcome to the podcast and welcome Laura Belgray. Hello. I'm so excited to have you.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. Laura is the founder of Talking Shrimp and the author of Tough Titties, which already those two names like perfectly set up what I want to talk to you about today.
Sounds good. We will.
Yeah,
We can talk all about them. Yep.
I'm like, for those that don't know you yet, could you give us a little introduction on yourself?
Okay. Wow. You know what? I'm out of practice of my self-intros, but so as the founder of Talking Shrimp, I have a company that is known for copywriting, and I started it back in 2009. But my major overall umbrella mission is to help entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, everybody ending in preneur, people with their own businesses find the words and the chutzpah to make their business a total expression of their personality, because that is how you come as humanly possible, as close as humanly possible to getting paid to be you. And that to me is the holy grail of work, getting paid to be you. That's something that I always wanted. So that's what I help people do now, mostly through copywriting and other forms of expression. And then this year, I wrote my first book, or actually published my first book. It was in the works for a while, but it is the aforementioned Tough Titties on living your best life when you're the effing worst. And so that's what I've been all about for the last 6 months or so. Now I'm going to say 18 months. My mind has been on book, book, book.
Oh, I'm sure. I can't even imagine the work that
Yeah.
goes into that. That
Oh,
is
yeah.
incredible, especially one that's like as personal as that one is.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so
Yeah.
talk to us a little bit about like I would love to hear more about like your journey first with being unapologetically yourself and showing up in your business because I think when we this is something I love talking about within my own business as
Mhm.
well. And I think when we talk about showing up as yourself in your business, people love to just kind of be like, that can't be true. Like there's just an immediate reaction of like, yeah, but there's a limit. Or like, yeah, but I need
Mhm.
to like structure it in a certain way. I would love to hear about like how this became a passion of yours, how this shows up for you, all of that good stuff.
Yeah. Well, getting paid to be myself has been a passion for a long time, or just a goal and something that I always dreamed of. And that's how I always expressed it. It's like, oh, I wish I could just get paid to be myself, which is not the same as getting paid to exist, I have learned. Because when people would say, like, do what you love and the money will come, or do what you love and you'll never have to work a day in your life, or find your passion and people will pay for it. And that's not necessarily true, or people would be paying me just to watch Real Housewives on my couch, and that's it. Like, good job. You've completed 5 episodes today. Keep up the good work, and hit another check will be coming your way. So that doesn't really happen. But having found, I guess, like ever since the internet came into my life, and I started blogging and evolved into writing emails that sell my stuff, and creating my own courses and just writing about whatever I want in service of selling those and making money from them. I've been able to channel my personality into making money, and it's been a great thing. And I would say I never hesitated to be completely myself in my business. And I started off on the foot of, I am, I'm going to say what I want to say, and I'm going to be who I am. And I hope I can find a way for people to pay me for it. So that, I mean, that's not always that immediate and direct. I think a lot of people get, especially in the online world, get really caught up in, who am I supposed to be? What do people want to hear from me? What do people want to hear in general? What do people go nuts for? What inspirational thing can I say, even if I don't believe it? I have to be a certain way for people to take me seriously. And I've just never done any of that, because I would rather eat a bag of hair than be somebody I'm not, you know?
And you've always been that way. That's just like a
Yeah.
natural thing for you.
Yeah, I've always been that way. I would say that the struggle was in, how do I make this pay? How do
Mm,
I make money from this? For instance, like I used to just write silly posts on the internet, on Facebook and then Instagram and wherever else, and wish that there was some way to get paid for those. And then I found a way to marry those with a business. And I found that people love it when you are honest and when you are who you are, and it's inspiring to them and they gravitate to it. And so so it's not like I got pushback from it. It's not like
mm.
it's not like anyone ever told me like you can't be this way online. Although I do get um, email replies and the sort from buttoned up kind of fuddy-duddy people who are like, you have a typo here. How am I supposed to take you seriously as a copywriter? Or, how am I supposed to take you seriously as a copywriter when you curse in your emails? And I'm like, well, maybe you probably are not supposed to and won't. And you don't need to work with me or learn from me or anything. I'm for who I'm for.
I love that. How do you 2 questions. 1,
Hmm.
how do you suggest, like, working towards that if you're not someone that comes naturally? 2, and then my second question after will be, like, how did you start making money off of this? Like, when you say, "I just started making money being myself," I wanna
Yeah.
know what that looked like for you. But first, yeah, can you answer, like, for those that it doesn't come naturally to, because I have such a respect for people that are like, "I came out of the womb like this, and I've just been
Uh-huh.
like this my whole life," but for some of us, it's a little bit scarier. What do you recommend to people when they're wanting to be more themselves, but it feels a little freaky, especially in the online space?
Yeah. Well, I'll say first off that like, even though I'm like, yeah, I've always been this way, I'm not as an unself-conscious person. I'm not a zero fucks person. I would love to be, but I really do care what people think of me. So I'm an edited person. I will rewrite something 50 times to try and get it right so that it sounds the way I would say it, but also has the most punch or whatever that is. But I don't shy away from things that might get people riled up or make them mad or make them dislike me or think that I'm not a serious person. And I talk about this a lot in my book, especially in the first chapter, which is called "Deb Fishbone Likes This," and it's um, about hate following my middle school bully, my middle school nemesis online, decades after she stole away my best friend and made my life a living hell. Um, in that chapter, I talk about the lesson that I had to unlearn from that year of hell, of that sixth grade awfulness, which is that one person disliking you can ruin your life. She did. She didn't like me. She took who I was and weaponized it against me. And I think we all have some experience like that, where we learn the lesson, the false lesson that we need to unlearn, which is that being disliked is dangerous, that being yourself is dangerous. It's dangerous to be you. And because in real life is not sixth grade, and especially later in life, creative life, business, career, standing out, which you need to if you have a business or a brand, being you and being a weirdo is where it's at. And I say only the weird survive, and fitting in is the kiss of death. So I have to remind myself every time I'm like, oh no, I can't say this. And this is my advice to people who feel like I can't really be myself, that you have to remember that, first of all, nothing great, nothing you love, no work of art, piece of music, book, movie, TV show, anything you love or anyone you follow was ever created in the name of fitting in and not being annoying and not pissing people off. Nothing. So you have to be willing to be annoying and you have to be willing to piss people off and remember that it is not going to ruin your life. And in fact, it's probably going to make your life a lot better and give other people permission to be more of themselves. And So my advice in like getting you out into your, I don't know, your self-expression, your videos, your words, your captions, your emails, your blog posts, anything that you put out there, that's a matter of practice. And I recommend something that I do every day is free writing in an app called 750words.com. And this is just like, so it's basically, you've heard of morning pages, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. So this is basically more, it was based on morning pages, Julia Cameron's morning pages. It's just it's a website that counts your words. So you write in it, you start fresh every day, and there's a word count at the bottom, and it lights up green when you reach 750. And the object here is not to write anything good. It's not to be edited. It's not for publication. It's just to sit there and write, just the neural garbage that comes out of you. And you will surprise yourself by what comes out of you and what
Mm.
comes out onto the page. And a lot of the time you'll be like, huh, I never put that way. I never said that before. I never said that out loud. And you'll find that there's a lot of stuff there that you can just put out into the world, that it's not an edited form necessarily, but you'll find a lot of genius comes out of you when nobody's watching, when there's no one around to edit you or care or impress.
I love that idea of just, like, having a place to dump something that's never gonna go anywhere, especially as someone that, like, I always wanna journal those things, but then I'm like, "My hand's gonna cramp. That's gonna take so long." Like, I
Uh-huh,
come
yeah.
up with the dumbest excuses to not journal, it's astounding. So I love this idea of, like, dumping everything out somewhere. Do you ever use those things for anything, or do you kind of have, like, a setting rule that, like, it just stays there?
No, I often do. I often find that, like, that something will come out of me that I didn't expect, that I didn't even know was there, and I'm like, "Oh, that's funny," or "That's really interesting," or "That's really, like, kind of a hot take,"
Mhm.
and then I'll use it in some form, either in an email or social or both, and, so it's a great source of raw material that you might have to reshape, but you don't wanna do it in the service of that, like, "I'm gonna write something for my blog post today," or "I'm gonna write something for my caption for Instagram." You wanna just write a bunch of 750 words worth of garbage. That should be your only aim, and out of that garbage might come something. And but after you've done that, you're warmed up and new, like, just the act of writing itself creates, I don't know, neural passageways or something like that, pathways, something about neuroplasticity and blah blah blah, that
Mm.
it
I
creates
love the
some
blah, blah,
genes.
blahness of it all.
Not a scientist, too lazy to research, but I believe these things that I've read and forgotten about how writing just it gets the ideas coming, it gets the wheels turning, and so after you've done that, you're kind of warmed up to create whatever else you want to create, and practice being yourself out loud.
How do you kind of, like, discern what is worth putting out there and what is not? Because I think that's one of the things I know I've followed. I remember, for example, I followed one creator and I loved what they did and, like, they were so themselves, and then I remember one time they posted a photo of them, like, on the toilet, and I was like,
Ha!
"I don't know how I feel about that."
Mm,
Like, that's
mhm.
almost too much, and, like, not to say, I mean, maybe that just goes to show that, like, I wasn't their target demographic in that
Yeah.
instance, but, like, how do you decide what is worth putting out there to show your personality and, like, what is
Mhm.
personal and is going to stay personal?
Yeah. I I mean, I use my own internal meter of like what I would want to see from somebody else. And that is not it. I would not want to see me or anyone on the toilet necessarily. So if I'm like, would I want to see this? And the answer is yes, then it's worth putting out there. If the answer is no, then it's not. And if the answer is I'm not sure, then I go with it because I do tend to edit myself, and I do tend to think about what will, what will people think, or will this get enough engagement? And these days, the answer is no anyway. Like,
Mhm.
even the things that I think are amazing, um, like they get crickets, and just the algorithm is out to kill us. So, so knowing that anything I put out there is probably not going to get the engagement that it used to, or the engagement I want, and it's become less embarrassing, and you can turn off like counts and um, all that. I go for it. I feel like it's usually the thing that you slapped up and thought wasn't necessarily worth saying or posting that gets everyone saying this. And then the thing that you polish to a high gloss, that, that gem that you've been working on and think is gonna, I don't know, blow everyone's minds and go viral, is crickets. So because I'm such a bad judge of what's going to hit, I trust, I trust volume. That's what
Mm.
I trust. Just creating in volume, and you just can't predict what you make is going to land with people, and maybe inspire them, or make them laugh, or make them get them sharing. You just, I, maybe some people are good at predicting that. I don't. Are you?
I with some things, yes. I think it's
Hmm.
really hard to I always tell people, I'm like, it's harder to gauge your own things than it is other people's. Like, I feel like I can do really well at predicting other people's things and like what I
Hmm.
recommend they kind of focus on. But when it comes to yourself, you're just like, it's so much harder to judge your own content and your own things just because you've got such, an internal dialogue about what it means and like what it says about you and all of that stuff. So, there's a science to it, but I'm like, there's also just a bit of luck.
Yeah, luck and volume. It's a numbers game, right?
Yeah, how do you balance like how often are you kind of just showing up personally versus talking about your business? Because I think a lot of people almost going quantity over quality can feel
Hmm.
intimidating in the amount that I just was having a coaching call the other day talking to one of my clients about how like it is really weird that now on top of our jobs we basically have to be content production companies and like
Hmm.
that's a new thing. It's really intimidating. Like how do you stay on top of publishing such a quantity of content and still keeping it fun at the same time? I don't know if I'm phrasing that question in a way to do it
Yeah.
justice, but, like, how do you keep the fun in it and keep the excitement in it? Like, are you mostly just having fun like, literally just having fun and talking about yourself rather than business, or, like, how does that look for you?
I It's a mix. Sometimes it's super fun. I love writing my emails. I write an email to my list 3 days a week normally, or if I'm doing a launch, then it's pretty much every day. So Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, I send out a new email, and love writing those. I just always have fun finding a small story, like small everyday story. But maybe it's about my husband cleaning out the fridge before we go on a trip and throwing out the tuna fish that I swear that I'm going to eat before we leave. That kind of thing. Just like tiny everyday stories. I love taking those and writing them up and connecting them to some sort of a takeaway, or sometimes it's a call to action to buy something, and making money from these little from these dumb stories. I take so much pleasure in that. Sometimes, like on social, this need it does feel sometimes it does feel like a hamster wheel. Like I have got a lot of stuff that I can reuse and repurpose, but I do like to keep it fresh and create new stuff. And sometimes it feels like a joy, and sometimes it feels like a drag. I think the drag comes from how tough the algorithm has become. So you get less, it's less rewarding to post something, but I have fun creating things. I have fun creating a graphic. I have fun writing a caption. Like yesterday, a friend sent me a picture of myself in my cubicle in 1997 when I was at Viacom at Nick at Night writing promos, and my desk is what I was, and still am, which was pure chaos. It was just a hot mess of a desk, and like, I can't wait to see what you do with this. What kind of post you come up with? And I was like, I'm not gonna save this. I want to post it right now, and I
Mm.
just made it into a carousel of like blown up little parts of that same photo, and in order, like 1 through 9 or 10, talking about each slide of it, and the Diet Coke on my desk, and the mess of VHS tapes, and how young I looked, and like I looked like a 12-year-old sitting in a big person's chair. Um, and so that was just fun. Like when I'm inspired, when I have something new to post about, it's super fun. As for the mix of business and personal, I try to, as often as I can, I try to come up with some kind of business angle, some kind of call to action in most of my captions. This is on Instagram, which I created strictly as a business account.
Mm.
But I keep it all personal. I feel like every post is an opportunity to drive someone to my website and get them to sign up for my emails. So I try to connect it most of the time to something along those lines.
How do you show up and keep like again, I keep using the word fun, but like how do you keep it fun or at least somewhat enjoyable on the days where you're not feeling inspired? Like do you have those days where you're just like, I know I
Mm.
need to do something, but I don't want to?
Oh yeah, I for sure I have those days. First of all, like get it when I'm in that headspace of like, ugh, work feels relentless. A year ago, I thought I wanted to do this for the rest of my life, and right now, I just want to retire. I wish I could win the lottery and retire and sail away on a yacht, even though I don't like yachts that much. So I do have those days, absolutely. And when I do, first thing I know to do is hit my 750words.com again. And I have no stake in this business. I don't know if it's even a profitable website at all. Uh, but
You're like,
I
not sponsored, just
Not
good.
sponsored, yes, just a fan. So, um, that usually gets me feeling at least like, "Oh, I wrote," and something fun might come out of it. Uh, the answer usually is not scrolling through socials, like, those it just makes me feel bad and, like, uninspired and, "Oh, I should have written that," or everyone's an asshole. And I don't want to be part of this asshole parade. So if I'm still feeling that way, uh, I don't know. I try writing something. I'll write to a prompt, maybe like a creative writing prompt. Just feeling like I've written something or like I have something to say, reminding myself that I have something to say is what keeps it fun, I think. And, like, worst comes to worst, I blow it off and don't publish or create anything that day. I have those days, and, I will dive back into one of my Bravo shows that I'm watching reruns of.
I kind of love that though. I think it's like I don't think we talk about enough that like some days are just a wash and you just like need to
Mhm.
watch Bravo.
Yeah.
And lately I've been trying to like really push that with my audience and my clients of like obviously we can't do that all day every day, but like some days it's just not happening. Like and that's
Yeah.
okay. And as long as you don't have a client deadline, like check out, do what you got to do, come back better the next day. Like I had a phone call with a friend this morning who didn't sleep very well and she had slept until 10 a.m. And I was like, go back to bed. And she was like, well, it's already 10 a.m. And I was like, are you going to do a single productive thing when you're this tired? Like, just go back to bed and sort it later. Cause like right now, you're not going to get anything productive done anyway. Sometimes it's just a wash and we want to watch Bravo and that's okay.
Mhm. Yeah, I am all for going back to bed. I am all for, uh, yeah, watching Bravo all day, some days.
Mhm.
And sometimes I think about it, like I never feel guilty not doing anything. I just sometimes feel anxiety of like, oh God, I'll have too much to do tomorrow, or I'm not getting the stuff done that I need to do. But I never feel guilty or less worthy as a person if I'm not busy and if I'm just lying there watching Bravo. So I have that edge I have the edge of laziness, like built-in laziness on a lot of people who find their
I love
self-worth in
that.
being busy.
No, I love that. I also am like, why, like, that's what you became self-employed for. Like, a normal boss wouldn't let you do that. You can let
Nope.
yourself do that. How great is that?
Yeah, no, I was a terrible employee, as detailed in the chapters of my book. There's one chapter called "Bad at Corporate" where that that talks about describes the only 6 months of my life that I actually had a 9 to 5 slash 10 to 6, and I was not long for that world. I couldn't make it there on time, whether it was 9 or 10, and I got punished for it. I basically got detention on that job. So I've always known that I'm not built for regular structured office life, that kind of schedule. And even when I did work in an office for many years as a promo writer for, as I mentioned before, Nick at Night and TV Land and other things, I was the one who would come in at noon or 1, just because I could. Not everybody liked that. As some people would say, like, "Oh, it's demoralizing. We have to come in at 9 or 10." I'm like, "Who said what I'm doing, coming at noon or 1?"
And then just detention.
Mhm, and yeah, and get detention.
I love that. I'm like, way to break the rules and then create your own system.
Mhm, exactly.
We
So I
love
knew I
that.
was like, I had to create a a business. For me, a business that would be sustainable is one where I make my own hours and I don't have any appointments, anything that I have to like put on AirPods for and turn on Zoom for, or anything of that nature until noon, usually 1. Like
Mhm,
1 is my ideal start time for that kind of work. Anything that's considered a meeting, anything where I have to respond to another human being,
mhm.
that's my start time.
I feel that. I'm like, I only take meetings Tuesdays and Thursdays, and that was like the best decision I ever made, was just like
The
only twice
best.
a week. This is just so great. And I was like, why didn't I do this before? Like I could have been doing this the entire time.
Same here. I mean, I remember I first took away Mondays and Fridays for
Mm,
anything scheduled. Those 2 days of the week were so happy for me. Such great days to wake up to and seeing blank space on the calendar. I was like, "Hmm, what if I did that also on" this was when I had clients. I was working on one-on-one with copywriting clients.
mhm.
And I was like, what if Tuesdays and Thursdays also look like that? And then I narrowed it down to just when only Wednesdays were client days. And when I started to dread Wednesdays, I was like, "Oh no, it's Wednesday." Um, that's when I was like, I think it's time to retire client work.
Mm,
No more one-on-one." So now, like these things are maybe I have group calls
mm.
a couple of times a month for my mastermind, and I do podcast interviews and sometimes trainings. But I love keeping days blank on the calendar.
I
Mondays and
love that.
Fridays are still absolute no nos. Like nothing can get scheduled then.
That's amazing. I love, like, just knowing too that, like, when the feeling came, you're like, "It's done. It's gotta get cut." Like, that's such
Yeah.
a great way to honor yourself.
Yeah. Agreed. And I
I
like
love
your
that.
Tuesday, Thursday rule too.
It works great. Yeah, I've
Yeah.
personally loved it. Okay, so my next question is rejection. I wanna talk a little bit about rejection because
Hmm.
rejection, I feel like as artists in general, stings no matter what. I mean, rejection as a human stings no matter what, and then you add in the artistry, it feels so personal. Add on top of that showing up as, like, truly yourself. I remember the first time, because I tried to bring my life into my business quite a bit, and I remember the
Yeah.
first time I posted this, like, reel that went viral about me pre, like, leaving Christianity. I was still married, like, I was just, like, this good little Christian wife, and then it was a reel about, like, what I look like now and how I live my life, and then to so many of my followers and, like, the people that love me and the people that are my audience, they responded great to it, but I ended up on, like, Christian man TikTok or Christian man Instagram, and God, they hated
That's a
me.
thing. Oh,
Yeah,
of course.
they
Yeah.
hated me, and they left some comments that I was just like, "Wow." I mean, thankfully, I've been doing this for a long time, so it hurt a lot less than it would have at, like, 21, but it was devastating. Like, I just remember being like, "Oh my god, this is, like, my entire personality, my entire life, and these people are just tearing me to shreds." How do you turn like rejection into like what do you do when you get rejected, or what does that process look like to you? How do you come back from it? How do you grow from it? Like I would love to kind of hear what that looks like for you as someone that shows up so authentically, because it's you, or it at least feels like they're rejecting you as a
Mhm.
person.
Yeah. So if you're talking about rejection in the form of haters and online trolls and disagreeers and all that,
Any
first of all,
kind.
I any kind like that's its own kind of rejection, as opposed to someone saying like, no, we're not interested or that. So I've had plenty of that too. But in terms of these trolls, uh, it stings. Like I hate the feeling. Again, I'm not a zero fucks person. So even if somebody disagrees with me, contradicts me in the comments of something, I don't like it. It gives me a little bit of a sour taste, like nasty hangover. Sometimes I'm like, what's bothering me today? Something's bothering me. Oh, yeah, that comment from someone. And I'm often tempted to like write back some kind of hateful reply. And I have to stop myself and just remember that these people are just frustrated with their life, and it's not me that they dislike or hate. It is just what they see online, and especially in my emails, a lot of times I will get uh, replies from people that make me really mad, and the best way for me to deal with them is hold back from replying, hold back from reacting, even if I have in my head, and sit on it and let that feeling fade. Usually, it's not worth it to write back to them, it's not worth it to reply. And instead, I use these things. Like if I get a nasty reply, I will use it as fodder for my next email and tell everybody what this moron said. And people love it. And your audience, whether it's your email subscribers or your audience on social, they will rally around you. They actually love to see how you react to trolls or to rejection or to anything insulting that takes down your ego. And so when you do that, it's inspiring to them. If you show that you are okay with it, or even that it stings, but you're still alive, I think that's a real gift to people, to be honest about how it feels and not to pretend that you give zero fucks. Like if you pretend, oh, this rolls right off of me, I don't care what anyone has to say. When you really do care, I think you're not only being disingenuous, but you are denying your audience the gift of you being real with them. And it's such a relief to them to see, like, oh, this person has feelings too. They're so relatable. And it's so inspiring to see that they have survived this nasty comment that I saw. So that's what I do with that. Um, in terms of that other kind of rejection, what comes to mind is when I was selling my book. First, first when I was querying agents, looking for an agent and sending out my proposal to them, and I got a lot of rejections. I mean, rejection after rejection. It wasn't hundreds. It might only have been like 6 or 7, but it felt like so many because they all came in a row. Like I got only rejections until somebody said yes, and some of the rejections were super kind and and thoughtful and specific to my work and told me what they liked about it and what they would recommend. Some would say, "This is wonderful work. Um, Unfortunately, I don't think it's something we can sell unless it's not the kind of thing that sells unless you're a household name." Unless you're super famous, you're not going to sell a book of essays slash memoir. So we love it, but we're going to pass on it. And that I didn't take personally. I just took it like that's just how the industry is. And the industry is not courageous and willing to take a chance because there's money involved and they are not willing to bet on something they don't think will make a lot of money. So that I didn't take personally. Um, but but still, when somebody said, "Unfortunately, I don't find myself passionate enough about the work to represent you," that I took personally and just had to remember. I think I think the most useful thing for me was remembering how many times other artists who are very successful have been rejected. You hear these stories all the time, like the actor or actress who never got a break until like their 50s or 60s, who auditioned, was a loser, and then finally got their big break. Or someone who, I remember this is a long time ago, but the show Desperate Housewives, created by the creator Mark Cherry. I remember him talking about how many times his show had been rejected, how many years he had spent getting rejected until it got made. And that's true of so many things that are now like the most beloved in their category of anything out there. And so that gave me comfort knowing that, like, that is the story behind anything great, just about, that it was rejected and rejected and rejected, or that person was rejected and rejected and rejected. So it's not a reflection on whether you are legitimately talented, not a reflection on whether your work is worth putting out there and could succeed. It's just a reflection on people's vision and level of courage or risk.
I think that's such an amazing thing to prompt people to remember is just the amount that comes before everyone's success, whether that's time or rejections, because I think social media for so many, including myself, there's so many days where I will look at someone and I'll be like, "Oh, they were like an overnight success. Like that happened
Mhm.
in 5 seconds." And I'll have to do like some serious digging before I realize that was not the case. They were not an
Yeah.
overnight success, but it's so easy with the access that we have to people's lives now to think that everyone has it so easy while we only have access to our own behind the scenes. So I love that reminder that like everyone is experiencing rejections or a bunch of time or maybe it didn't come until later in life or what have you, but it's very rarely an immediate overnight success.
Yeah, very rarely, and those do happen. I'm very jealous of those people. I mean, I I have a friend who wrote an essay, for Cup of Joe, a personal essay that got so many comments, and a lot of those comments were from agents saying, "Do you have an agent?" And so she got approached by a bunch of them, and offers of representation from them. And then she went with one and wrote up a proposal, and they took her book to auction, and it got her a $500,000 advance. And
Wow.
so, which which is both inspiring and dispiriting
Mhm.
to hear. It's like, it's nice to know that that can happen, and it's always worth putting your work out there, like, and submitting it, and you never know what can happen. And it's also the case that, like, that almost never happens, and it's probably not going to happen to you or anybody you know.
Yeah. I 100% agree. I'm like, it does happen, but it's pretty it's
Hmm.
pretty damn rare and
Pretty
it's
rare.
not worth banking on. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of this. I would love to hear like if you to kind of wrap up, if you had like one piece of advice or like a first step or like a first roadblock to get over when it comes to showing up as yourself, if you haven't been doing it and you've just been kind of hiding behind either a persona or what you think the industry wants to see, whatever it may be, like what would that piece of advice be for getting started in a more, I hate saying the word authentic because I know we've beaten that word to
Hmm.
hell, but like showing up in a more authentic way, both in person and in your business.
Yeah, I think, so hard to say like a first step, because is it
Mhm.
to overcome the fear of being disliked, or is it to overcome the block of, like, I don't even know what I have to say
Mm.
today. I don't even know what being myself looks like.
Ooh, let's say the
So,
second one. Can we go with the second one?
yeah, yeah. I think pay attention to who you are with your best friends, and
Mm.
what were you talking about with them, like the last time you met up with a friend, one of your best friends, somebody who makes you feel most like yourself. What did you talk about, or what would you call them up to complain about today, or brag about, or talk about? And just make a list of like topics you might discuss with them and start there. You can start putting that out there. If you were going to send them, for instance, the photo I talked about that I posted of me at my cubicle, I sent that as soon as my friend sent it to me. I sent it to one of my best friends right away, saying, "Look at this from 1997." Like, and she knows me from then. And there were so many things that we had to pick apart in the photo, and like, what is that, and who is that on the wall, and all that. So that, like, there you go. There's a prompt. Like, if there was a photo you were going to send to a friend, just say, we're talking about being yourself on Instagram or any of the socials. What would the photo be, and what would you have to say about it? And maybe start there. Or if you were going to text somebody um, a complaint or something you wanted to brag about, or something that you love about this day, right now, like what's making you happy right now, you could start there. I heard somebody ta- trying to remember who it was some comedian who's gotten big, and I like cannot remember who it was, but they were talking about how they got started in comedy, and somebody told them, make a list of 5 things you love and 5 things you hate.
Mm.
And I think that's a great prompt, and something you could even start with. You remember those, and prompts like that, like ways to talk about yourself that get other people thinking, um, are a great way to start.
Mm.
And people love them and respond to them because they're like, "Oh, me too," like number 3, or they tell their own. So, so a sort of icebreaker like that can work really well, can be really freeing. It doesn't have to be an essay form. It can be lists are really easy to write. I was gonna say, there's a reason that those do you remember that, like, 25 things you might not know about me list
Mm.
that originated on, I think, on Facebook, like
Yeah.
before Instagram was a thing. And uh it went so viral because everybody loved coming up with those 25 things, those 25 strange things, or maybe mundane, but it's so easy to write because it doesn't need to be structured, it doesn't need to be an essay form, it's a list, and it gets everybody else thinking of themselves, of theirs.
Mm.
So I think those kinds of lists and prompts are a great way to start being yourself and communicating who you are.
Oh my gosh, I'm like, I'm gonna get started on that after this. I'm like, I can't even think of it off the top of my head, so I will have to do some brainstorming.
Do it. Do it and see what happens. I mean, I think those are so fun. Which would you do? The 25 things or the 5 things I love, 5 things I
I
hate?
love the 5 things I love, the 5 things I hate because I joke with my friends, I'm a hater. Like, I can list off I'm like, I could list those 5 things too right now. But I'm like, I can I love a little bit of tea, I love a little bit of drama. So I'm like,
Mhm.
I'm a hater. I know how to list those things off. And I have things that I'm, like, extremely passionate about. So I'm like, I think that will have to be mine because I think 25 things feels really daunting.
Yeah, yeah, it's a long list. 25 is a lot, but I agree. Giving yourself the room, the structure to talk about things you hate, it's permission.
Mhm.
Whereas just saying like, "Here's what I hate," can feel negative.
Mm,
But
mhm.
if it's an exercise, like 5 things I hate, you have total permission
Yeah, I'm
to
a
be
writer.
hateful. Mhm. Yeah, exactly.
Oh my gosh, I love that. Well, thank you so much, Laura, for coming on and for sharing your experience and stories and wisdom. This has been amazing and so enlightening. So thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh my gosh, yes, it's been amazing. We will obviously link everything in the show notes, but could you let us know also where we can find you online and where we can find your book, all of that good stuff?
Yes, indeed. Okay, so my digital home is talkingshrimp.com. spelled just how it sounds. And I have great freebies there for writers, entrepreneurs, anybody who emails a list or wants to tell stories that sell. And then my book is Tough Titties, and you can find that on my website at talkingshrimp.com/book, or go right to toughtittiesbook.com, and you don't type in toughtitties.com. I can't tell you what's going to come up, but
Nothing good.
toughtittiesbook.com is the URL. Nothing good, depending on your perspective. And there, I have on my book page, I have all the bookseller links and bonuses for buying a one hardcover copy, or multiples. I have such good bonuses on there that are still up, so people
Fun.
should grab them while they are.
Oh my gosh,
And they
amazing.
will, yeah, and they're very good for creativity and expressing yourself and being who you are and getting paid for it. So I recommend them.
We love that. I'm like, I'm gonna go check that out now. Thank you so, so much again for coming on. It's been amazing to have you.
Thank you. Likewise, it's been so much fun.
And thank you guys for listening, and we will see you next time.